Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the very first episode of DevOps with Zach. I'm Arshad Zakaria, and today I have a guest with me who is Nilesh Jayanandana. He's an architect at WSO2 Sri Lanka and a Kubernetes trainer. Today we will be demystifying DevOps. So let's get started. So, hi Nilesh, how are you doing today?
Hey Zach, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. So, how is the weather in Sri Lanka today? Good.
It's a bit rainy today, but it's okay. It's a nice weather right now. What about you? You're based in Singapore, right?
Yeah, correct. So Singapore weather is very unpredictable. So you can't say whether it's going to rain or whether it's going to sunny. So it's always keep changing. So Nilesh, why don't you give a small intro about yourself and what you're doing currently and about your background a little bit?
Okay. I'm currently a software architect at an organization called WSO2. So I've been I've been a developer. I've been an engineer. I've been into DevOps for the past 8 plus years. And at WSO2, what I'm doing is I'm architecting this solution called Choreo, which is an iPaaS solution which allows people to sort of like run their applications, services, whatnot on this language called Ballerina as with a sort of like a low code experience, and we sort of like give a no op solutions to them, like, and the platform basically takes care of everything. So that's a brief intro on me. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for really really interesting. So let's see. So about this podcast, what we are going to do is today, to share the knowledge about like what you think about the DevOps and the current industry. I have seen a lot of people, like a lot of engineers and others, thinking that DevOps is something like depends on tools like Kubernetes, AWS tools, or like Docker, whatever the tools in the industry. But I think it's not to explain what is DevOps. So I thought of starting with this episode, like explain what is DevOps and how we should understand the main principle of DevOps. So, point of from your point of view, so what do you think about DevOps exactly?
Yeah, so as you pointed out, Zach, right, that's exactly correct. So when we talk about DevOps, a lot of organizations quickly jump into tools. They jump into clouds, like, and then Kubernetes, Docker, and all of these things. They think these tools are DevOps, but at the end of the day, that is not really DevOps. DevOps to me is sort of like, I would say, primarily it's a culture. So organizations need to sort of like have DevOps as a culture. It's a framework. It's a mindset, really. Like the way you do things, and then how you handle the processes, and then tools, of course, come into the bigger picture. But it's not just tools. It's basically, to me, it's the mindset, the culture, the processes you do, the automations you do, and the tools you bring in. So all of them together, to me, is what DevOps is. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I believe the same thing. Like whenever like a junior or else a fresh graduate always asks, so what is DevOps like and how to become a DevOps. So always they ask like, okay, if I do this particular certification, can I be a DevOps engineer? If I learn Kubernetes, can I be a DevOps engineer? So it's very hard to explain them like, okay, this is not DevOps, and it's like you said, it's mindset, right? So when it comes to mindset, the other person should have that mindset to understand and abstract that what we're explaining. So they might think, okay, these guys are jabbering about theory is not actually practical, or everyone is asking about Kubernetes experience or Docker experience in their resumes and stuff. But I think when it comes to job hunting also, they are doing a very bad thing, like they are always looking for these main tool based. I don't know, there are some JDs have seen that they mentioned about, okay, they need a AWS DevOps engineer, they need a Kubernetes DevOps engineer. I don't know what that means, but end of the day, it's about the culture, practices, and tools taking the rest of the things, but mainly culture and practices. So let's talk about the when it comes to culture. I think we can talk about a little bit about the collaboration, about the teams.
Mm.
Uh, So what do you think, like, the I think the DevOps is a one person job role, or just kind we can justify as an engineer, or like, is it a collaborative work? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think how DevOps came to be. Basically, you know the story, right? So there were developers once, and there was, system operation
Yeah, correct.
engineers, and then, they were always going back and forth. Developers knew how the applications were, how the app was working, but the sysops engineers didn't know how the app was working. But they were tasked with maintaining and running the application, whereas developers just focused on developing and nothing to do with deployment. So this actually had a rift between these two teams. So they were always going back and forth. There were always miscommunications, and it was really inefficient. So DevOps was like, the idea came to be. I think it was it Google or IBM? I'm not sure. Uh, so put these two teams together and let them collaborate. So what happens after that? That's how the DevOps was coined. The term DevOps was coined. And then as a DevOps engineer, you can sort of like take care of the entire life cycle of your application, from start to deploy. And when it comes to the mindset, it's all about teamwork and continuous learning on how to do things, how to improve things, looking at the feedback and how things are going on. You make improvements, you make tiny adjustments, and also like sort of like automate everything. So there's a famous saying or a famous quote, I can't remember who exactly said it, but says that automate yourself out of the job. So that is sort of like a base principle when it comes to DevOps. You sort of like do automations, and then make everything's just streamlined and get everything working as quickly as possible. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Nilesh, it's a good explanation about what you said right now. Yep. So yes, let me add something. Like, before DevOps, like there's a team called autonomous team. They have the one who like everything like themselves. Yes, currently, the current industry, I think it's how to explain that, like for every task now we have a separate engineer, right? For example, like security, when it comes security also, like they have the SOC, and they have security engineers,
Hmm.
and DevSecOps engineers, so on. So it's, I think the job roles are like more, yeah, they distribute into several areas, like same like if you call like agile method, right?
Yeah.
So I think the same way they distribute the job market as well right now. And the good example I would say for what you explained, like in short, there's a famous joke, right? The
Mhm.
developer is always complaining, okay, it's working on my computer, my local, I don't care whether it's not working on the production. So she's also operation engineer always complaining, uh, I don't know, it's not working on the production, it may be working in the development environment, but so that's the main thing. So that's, I think, where the practices are comes, right? The change
Yeah.
management, and like you said, like the processes and stuff. So let's talk about the change management, like you said, like automate everything. uh, I had this question, like everyone is asking, okay, if there's a small task, even do you want me to automate as, like for example, okay, we are creating an infrastructure, whether it may be a small one, but still they're saying, okay, I mean, I have to spend a lot of time on the coding, but if I do in the manual I can do it faster. But no, I always say, okay, go with that process, code it, infrastructure as a code, and do it through the change. So what do you think about the change management and IAC part? So how you think taking a pivotal role in this, the DevOps?
It is actually, even a small thing. I believe you should. It's better to go with an IAC, because then you have sort of like a source of truth, as that sort of like document or that code on how your infrastructure is built, and you can always come back and check. If you don't do that, what's gonna happen is you're gonna press some buttons in your console, and then you're gonna create certain resources, and then you have no idea they were even created. Couple of months later, you have no idea about the architecture, what are the networks and stuff like that. You always have to sort of like dig through to find out again. But the moment you jump into IAC, that's not the case. I mean, there's a single source of truth as that document, like you use Terraform, Pulumi, or whatever that works for you. and you can always study that and see how it is. Like for example, if you look at AWS, there are, in the console, I think you have probably seen that there are multiple regions, and you can have to sort of like switch through regions to see what are the things that you have on each and every resource. But to me, it's very easy to sort of like read the IAC code and like figure out how things are, what are the resources that are being deployed and all of that. Furthermore, there are additional stuff as well, the change management you talked about. So with the pipeline and with how all of these things, you can always vet your changes so that you can make sure that no mistakes are happening. And also you can always scan for security vulnerabilities and all of these things. So there are so many advantages that you can actually implement when you go via the IAC route, rather than you go ahead and do manual changes on the console. I highly recommend against going to the console and clicking buttons and deploying certain things. Even small ones, I would recommend to go with IAC.
Yeah, that's really. I mean, I agree with that, Nilesh, because I've seen that a lot of areas. Uh, for example, okay, especially some security groups or some other changes. Some
Hmm.
engineers made changes in the production with the console, and again, when they try to execute their ISA script, then there's a conflict. Okay, now we have to find who's the developer and who has done these things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so later in the episodes we can talk about those things like best practice of IAC, and we can invite another speaker. Maybe we can have a good conversation about that.
Yeah.
So and one more thing, like apart from this practice culture, I have seen that a lot of issues that between the groups, like I have seen this disconnect between the groups, like uh, when it comes to developers, okay, developers and QA engineers differently, and the security engineers,
Hmm.
DB engineers. And I think this the DevOps, I think fix this issue and make this the groups work to collaboratively. And I think the DevOps personally, I believe the DevOps fix this issue to work as a team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think as we mentioned, right? So currently, how the industry is going, DevOps has become its own silo. Like there are specialized DevOps teams now. But as I mentioned earlier, DevOps is a culture that should spread across all areas in the organization. It's a mindset, really. So, like when it comes to security, when it comes to automation and doing all of these things, this mindset should be there on everybody's head, starting from developer. Because when developer is developing code, he or she should have the security first approach. If they don't implement proper security at the code level, then when you go into the latter stages of your deployment, then there are issues. So automation and doing all of these things, it should be an overall thing on the entire team. The mindset should be there, but however, there are the specialized DevOps team. The role of them, what I see, is basically acting as a governing body, supporting developers, security engineers, and all the other silos to sort of like bring all of these silos together, implement best practices, implement processes, and move the organization forward. I think that's what the role of a DevOps team should be. And implementing DevOps is a role of everyone in the team, not just
Yeah,
the DevOps.
I agree. I would like to add few one more thing there. Like okay, when it comes to you were talking about the engineers, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
the job roles. So yes, so I've seen this one, like the current generation. I've seen lack of the issues. What I'm seeing is with the current generation is that they starting the carry with the cloud and the new tools and stuff. They kind of lacking of the basic, I would say. Not everyone, but most of the current engineers I've seen is the lack of knowledge, and they try to fix things like very fast. They're not like what you said, mentioned in this about the security side. I'll give a
yeah,
good example about that. Like okay, there can be two engineers. One is a junior associate in software engineer, and one can be a senior or lead level, maybe 5 to 6 years experience. So some places expecting, if the junior engineer is doing a task within 1 hour, some companies expecting to do the same with the senior one within the 5 to 10 minutes, but it's wrong. So
yeah,
what I would say is like uh, if a junior engineer is completing a task within 1 hour, the senior engineer should be take more than that, maybe 3 hours, 5 hours, or maybe 5 days, because the knowledge scope of the junior engineer is very limited. He
Yeah.
or she, like you mentioned, he or she, they don't have the experience and the knowledge at that time because they are a junior, right? That's
Yeah.
so they might think with that the limited domain. But when it comes to senior engineer, they have this experience, and they will think about all of the security side, the network, the performance, even the cost. The performance mainly impact the cost, right? So I have worked with such of engineers with my career. I'm really glad uh, they think out of the box and give the solution. So I would like to add that part to your topic as well. And the next
Yeah.
one is lacking the thing what I'm seeing in an organization where we're lacking the sharing feedback, the best practices.
Yeah.
So when it comes to sharing feedback, okay, they take some are taking these things are personal, but I think in the DevOps culture, when it comes to DevOps, the feedback is really important. So what do you think about the feedback
Yeah.
about
The
the
feedback.
feedback? Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, you shouldn't take these things personally anyway. I think feedback, as in how it's not really performance feedback; it's just the way you do things. There are certain organizations, who are really comfortable with what they're doing, and although it seems inefficient, it although for us outsiders it seems inefficient, but to them, they are really comfortable. They're in the happy place. Like, they don't want to go ahead and learn a new tool or a better way to do what they already have. So then it's sort of like problematic. So you really need to sort of like fix the mindset to sort of like have always improve, always look for better options, always improve your efficiency, improve your flows, processes, etc. Then only as an organization that particular company can move forward, rather than being stuck in the same place. And also, like, a small thing to add on what you said earlier, like, a lead engineer taking more time than a developer. I mean, it's touch and go, right? Because uh, sometimes junior engineer doesn't know anything at all, and they had to do a lot of research to do something, and then still they end up with a half job. Whereas the lead engineer, with the experience, he might not know the technology, but with the experience might know where to actually shoot the arrow, right? A specific area, and then do the research on that, and then do a full job or a completed job for a given task. But I think the timing is, depending on the task, etc. There's a chance that a lead engineer can do it before the junior engineer. But yeah, I mean, depending on the experience and the
And
size of.
the culture of the organization as well, I think.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
also, like, also the lead engineer actually should be humble enough to sort of like accept certain things that junior engineers are saying. I think that is also a big part of DevOps, the whole feedback loop. So because nobody can know everything, right? So you should always be open to learn from anyone and everyone. So I think that's a big part of DevOps as.
Yes, yes. I think I actually that's I totally agree with you. Like it doesn't matter how old are you, what are the experience you have. Maybe you have like 10 certifications.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't believe in certifications because I have seen people like those who have like a lot of certification, even they don't know the basics. So
Yeah.
certifications are good, like yes, to improve your career and stuff. But if you have the intention to do the certifications to gain the knowledge, yes, I would agree. But if you're doing like sake of just to get the certification, then no point. So yes, the sharing taking one of the main part in that DevOps culture. Then when it's practices, I think most of the people talking about the CI/CD. When it comes to DevOps, we cannot forget the CI/CD.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I believe the audience now know that CI/CD part of this one. So let's briefly we'll give an introduction. What about CI/CD? So Nilesh, why don't you just give a brief from first commit to the production deployment, how the CI/CD implementing?
Yeah, so continuous integration and continuous deployment, which is dubbed as CI/CD. Um, Basically, it's the automation process that we've been talking about throughout today. Um, so basically, how let's just go with an example. When I was an intern engineer, I was working in this organization, and the way they deploy to production was basically, it was a PHP application. Um, I would just I didn't even we didn't even have a code base, if I remember. It was just local. It wasn't an IT organization. It was a non-IT organization, and how they deploy to production was basically, there was this thing called FileZilla. You can use it to sort of like FTP into the server. So you would sort of like FTP your PHP files into the server at real time. I mean, it's a zero downtime update, but
Yeah.
where they got that part right. But yeah, you do the replacement. That was another thing I've seen, some organizations do who work with Java and stuff. You push to the code, you SSH into the server, you pull the code, you build the jar, and then you stop the current jar, and then you start the new jar file, the HTTP server. um, all of these things are manual work, and these are prone for human failures, and then these are it's cumbersome, and also there's a lot of, it's prone to failures. So what CI/CD does is it automates this entire flow. So as a developer, if a CI/CD is set up for me, and if I have good Git practices, uh, from code to production, it's one seamless flow. Like, we have these things in DevOps called environments. We have a pre-dev environment, dev environment, staging. I mean, there's so many environments, right? So for this conversation, let's say that we have development, staging, and production. So when you make, and then when it comes to Git, there are practices. There's you can do feature branching. You can have sort of like main branches like dev, prod, etc. So however you do it, it's fine. So you push the code to your repository, and then you can create a trigger. You can say, all right, when you push to the main branch or the master branch, create a trigger. Run something. So basically, main or master. Let's assume that you have stable code there.
Like action. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you can trigger something. In GitHub, we have this thing called GitHub Actions, and there are other stuff as well, other CI/CD
Yeah.
tools. So when this action happens, when this trigger happens, we can define tasks to do on this trigger. So when we push to the master, it would automatically run a job that would sort of like scan your code to check vulnerabilities, probably, and then it's gonna do a build, and test it, and then build your artifacts, push it somewhere, and then deploy it into your server, and then sort of like update it, and then it's done. And it's very easy for a developer, because all you have to then do is do a git push, and you can just watch everything just slowly unravel, and then update everything, and you don't have to do everything. I mean, you have this sense of accomplishment when you actually do that. When it happens, I mean, it's very fun to see how your pipelines are working on all of these things. Probably have to try it out and see.
Yeah, Nilesh, that's a good example. I think I mean, like, it's a very vast area, so we can
Yeah,
have few podcast about that. The Git flow is a separate topic, and the best practices there, like how we implementing DevSecOps
yeah.
to that pipeline. So yeah, we can do another session for that, definitely. So let's move on, and let's go to the bit of observability part. So I think for me, that's my favorite area.
Mm,
Like, without observability, everything is failed. So just brief about the observability, like what you think, like why it's very pivotal.
yeah. So we spoke about CI/CD, that only that stops after you deploy to production. Then it's done. So now you have to monitor your production, how your application is working, the latencies, whether your users are encountering any errors, whether your applications are crashing, whether your services are all up. So all of these you need to sort of like monitor. You have to observe, and you have to look at, with observability comes alert. It's all, everything is in part, right? So you have to set up alerts, so that you are always one step ahead. If something is happening, or if something's going wrong, you always know what's going on, and you know how to fix it. You're not going to wait till your customer calls you and tells you your site is down, or your functionality is not working. That is a bad practice. You should be You should be able to know these things beforehand, and you should also be able to mitigate these things beforehand. All of these things come under observability. It allows you to properly scale your stuff, make proper decisions, take business decisions, and do all of these things. And also, many organizations has this thing called SLA, service level agreement. So all of these things actually come in par with observability and how you set up your observability pipelines. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's brief.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's comes to that area as well, and it's covering part of the SRE side as well,
Yes.
with
Yes.
SL, SLO, and SLI. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's wrap it up. What we have talked about today about the DevOps, like basically, so DevOps is the combination of culture, practices, and tools that increases an organization's ability to deliver applications and services at high velocity. So the high velocity in the sense, like Nilesh explained, that the deliveries to the production should be in high velocity. Yeah, I've seen that Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, they do this right without zero. I mean, with zero downtime. We don't even feel it like so with their best practice and architecture. So let's uh, talk about these things in the coming up episodes of this podcast. So Nilesh, you want to say anything before we wrap it up this session today?
No, I think nothing much. Just have a good day, and keep listening to Zach. He would probably have good episodes coming up in his podcast.
Thank you, Nilesh, for joining with us today. Okay,
Yeah.
take care.
Thanks. See you. Bye.
Thank you, Nilesh, for joining with us today. Hope to see you all there soon with another episode of DevOps with Zach. Take care. Bye bye.